I felt it in my bones, a digital tremor, the kind that whispers warnings even when the server racks hummed with confident power. I knew something was fundamentally broken the moment I audited the core algorithms for our new AI-driven educational platform, Nexus Learn. The data parsing was too loose, the encryption protocols surprisingly weak, and the user privacy safeguards, they crumbled like badly written code. You didn't need a doctorate in cybersecurity to see the gaping holes. You just needed to actually look. But somehow, in that gleaming, glass-walled executive suite, no one wanted to see the impending data breach screaming. I dedicated 15 years to this company, but that meant nothing to Chad and his inner circle. They treated me like an outdated piece of software they forgot to patch. The instant I flagged Nexus Learn as having critical security vulnerabilities, the room went silent, then condescending. Chad, with his perfectly coiffed hair and inflated ego, looked at me like I'd just confessed to using dial-up. "Relax, Bella," he smirked. "This isn't your advanced cryptography seminar. It's a revolutionary platform. We're on a tight launch schedule. I should have known then. Logic doesn't work on people who think a viral TikTok campaign counts as a business strategy. But I still believed in protocols, in rigorous testing, in the power of truth. I submitted the report, 28 pages full of threat models, penetration test results, and historical vulnerability analyses. 2 weeks later, I found my report in the communal printer tray, half soaked with someone's spilled cold brew. The cover page had been rebranded with some junior analyst's adjusted risk confidence index. Basically, they'd highlighted the parts that sounded good and buried the rest. Optimistic forecasting, they called it. I called it corporate malpractice. Still, I kept pushing, with meetings, emails, even a color-coded visual aid. I should have known better. You don't bring a USB stick to a gladiator match. And hey, if you're still listening to this tale and somehow finding it relatable, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit my first 10,000 followers before the next data leak swallows my sanity. Apparently, 95% of you just listen without engaging, kind of like Chad at annual compliance training. Don't be a Chad. Anyway, you know what it feels like to be the only one shouting about a firewall in a room full of people planning a grand opening? That's what working here became. Every Monday brought another feature rollout, another cost-cutting measure, another photo of Chad shaking hands with some polo-shirted investor next to a banner that read, "Securely Innovative." But this platform wasn't secure. It was a ticking time bomb. I started noticing strange things. The access logs kept shifting, like the system itself was trying to send a message. My workstation would freeze whenever I uploaded certain vulnerability scans to the shared drive. Chad's assistant started forgetting to include me in security briefings. I wasn't paranoid. I was experienced. Then came the meeting, a room full of developers, marketing gurus, finance guys in matching branded hoodies. Chad stood at the head like he was auditioning for a TED Talk. "And here's where Bella will explain why the platform is perfectly robust," he said, gesturing to me like I was a trained algorithm. I stepped up, clicked to my slide, Subsystem Vulnerability Analysis, and opened my mouth. "You're not seriously still on this, are you?" Chad interrupted before I could get past the title. "Guys, I swear Bella here thinks we're launching Fort Knox. It's an educational platform, not a top-secret government database." Laughter rippled through the room. Heat crept up my neck. I stared at the projected code. I thought about walking out, but I stayed. That's the curse of caring. After the meeting, a young developer I barely knew caught me by the coffee machine. "Hey, off the record, can you send me your full report?" he asked, his eyes darting. I did that night, because even if no one believed me yet, someone eventually would. Chad strutted into the office like he'd just disembarked from a private jet parked on a resume. Designer glasses indoors, sockless loafers, and a jawline that screamed venture capital. He wasn't hired for his technical acumen. I'd be surprised if he could spell cybersecurity without autocorrect. But the board loved him. He brought vision, energy, and apparently a networking ability that made investors feel things. Within a week of landing the CTO spot, he had 2 interns reassigned for negative vibes and replaced the good coffee with some subscription blend that tasted like burnt circuit boards. His whole shtick was optics over obstacles. Chad didn't want problems. He wanted press releases. That month, we had a major stakeholder presentation in the main auditorium. The room was packed. Developers, sales execs, big-bellied men in expensive suits pretending to care about educational accessibility. There was even a catering spread with artisanal toast that made the air smell like pretension. My slides were ready. I'd rehearsed them 3 times the night before. I had flowcharts, data diagrams, cross-sections showing the data flow vulnerabilities under the proposed architecture. I was nervous, yeah, but confident. I thought maybe, just maybe, the weight of the data would tip the scales. Then Chad happened. I wasn't even halfway through my second slide when he cut in, facing the stage like a discount Elon Musk. "Bella, Bella," he chuckled, holding up a hand like a bouncer stopping a frat party. "You know we all love your passion, but folks, let me tell you, this woman thinks the internet is falling. If Bella had her way, we'd never launch another thing in the digital space. She's basically the office's Debbie Downer." The room roared with laughter. Laughter bounced off the walls. I stood there, clicker in hand, my face frozen. I think I heard one of the sales execs choke on his avocado toast. Debbie Downer. That stuck. I heard it whispered around the water cooler the next day. It showed up as a Slack emoji. Someone even made a gif of a sad emoji wearing a lab coat falling into a black hole. And suddenly, my credibility, 2 decades of systems architecture, published white papers, and security audits, was reduced to a tired meme. Chad flashed me a grin like he was handing me a participation trophy. "Don't worry," he said, as the investor shook his hand and ignored me entirely. "We appreciate your enthusiasm." I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded, rage clenched behind my teeth so hard I swear my jaw ached. Later that day, I was in the parking lot, about to collapse into my car, when a voice caught me off guard. "Hey, Dr. Rossi?" I turned. It was that same young developer from the coffee machine, Liam, I think. His laptop bag was slung over one shoulder, his voice low, cautious. "Can you still send me your full report, the real one, the one they didn't want you to show?" I blinked at him. He looked nervous, glancing back toward the office like someone might drag him away for asking. I nodded slowly. "You got an email." He pulled a scrap of paper from his pocket. I took it without a word. So yeah, not everyone was buying the Debbie Downer act. Some folks still had ears. I didn't know then that Chad wasn't just trying to fast-track the project. He was burying dissent and next in line for the digital shovel. Me. I spent that entire night crafting a memo so airtight it could survive a DDoS attack. Not a word of emotion, no trace of ego, just pure data and precedent, like a scalpel cutting through. I titled it, Urgent Recommendation for Secondary Security Audit, Phase 1, Nexus Learn Platform. I attached my original report, penned a bibliography longer than Chad's attention span, and CC'd every engineer, product manager, and legal counsel remotely involved in the project. 24 hours passed. Nothing. 48. Still nothing. Then, on the 3rd morning, I walked into the office and found the color printer whirring out a glossy flyer for the platform's public beta launch event. It featured a stock photo of smiling students in front of a futuristic tablet with the slogan, "Solid Foundations for Future Learning." Solid my ass. I stormed into Chad's glass cage, his corner office, that reeked of expensive diffuser oil and self-importance, and slapped the memo onto his keyboard. "Have you even read it?" I asked. He leaned back in his ergonomic chair, laced his fingers behind his head, and smirked. "I skimmed it," he said, "but we don't have time for academic exercises. We're building momentum. You, Bella, are starting to sound like resistance." Resistance? I blinked. Trying to stop us from launching $1 million platform on a critically flawed system? You're undermining confidence, he snapped. We've got investors lined up and marketing campaigns booked. The last thing we need is paranoia infecting the team. I'm requesting a second security audit, independent, not the cherry-picked nonsense from last month. He stood suddenly, too close. His smile flattened. You're done making requests. Effective immediately. You're on administrative leave. HR will send the paperwork. My throat went dry. The office outside was silent, like everyone had suddenly forgotten how keyboards worked. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm serious, he said, walking past me to open the door, his way of shooing me out like a misbehaving intern. Take the time to recalibrate. I didn't move. Not at first. My hands were fists, nails biting skin. I won't retract the report. No one asked you to, he said with that slick, polished contempt only people who have never been proven wrong can pull off. But I suggest you take this opportunity to reflect on whether you still align with the company's goals. He meant, shut up or stay gone. On the way out, I passed Sarah, the closest thing I had to a friend in that office. We'd been through 5 product launches and 1 server crash together. She wouldn't meet my eyes, but just as I reached the elevator, she whispered, barely audible, Bella, let it go. Just for your own good. For my own good. Funny how those words always mean for their comfort. I sat in my car for an hour that day. Just sat. No music, no air. Just the Silicon Valley heat pressing in. The taste of copper behind my teeth. I wasn't going to fake compliance. I wasn't going to smile and nod and go gentle into Chad's brochure-friendly nightmare. He wanted silence, but the data wasn't done speaking. The envelope was thick, too thick. HR handed it to me with the kind of fake sympathy usually reserved for televised funerals and reality TV eliminations. Inside, my severance package, a pre-written departure announcement, and a 6-page NDA so aggressive it may as well have ended with, and don't even think about tweeting. I flipped through it, heart pounding. The language was surgical. No public comments, no professional critiques, and absolutely no discussion of project-specific technical concerns. Basically, they gagged me with a paycheck and a smile. Chad didn't even show up for the meeting, but as I was boxing up my office, my books, my old programming textbooks, my battered coffee mugs, he did slink in with a cup of something organic and smug. Hope you enjoy your sabbatical, he said, as if I were some old device being sent to a recycling plant. I didn't reply. Words felt useless, and besides, the rage had congealed into something heavier by then. Something that sat in my chest, like wet concrete. I spent the next 3 weeks in a fog. I'd always imagined if I ever quit, I'd travel, maybe finally see the northern lights. But no, I just sat in my pajamas, watching old coding tutorials, half-eating cold pizza, and searching for cybersecurity consulting jobs that wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot cable after news of my departure circulated. One firm ghosted me after 2 rounds of interviews. Another called just to ask about the incident. I hung up mid-sentence. I was radioactive. The spiral had layers. First came the crying, then the numbness, then the vengeful ideas you don't tell your therapist. I drank cheap instant coffee out of an old travel mug and avoided mirrors like they owed me money. One humid Tuesday, somewhere between self-pity and a headache that felt biblical, I opened the door to my storage unit and started digging through old bins. I think I was looking for an old project notebook, but what I found instead stopped me cold. An archive printout, yellowed with time, folded along frayed creases. I unrolled it across my kitchen table, still sticky with pancake syrup from a breakfast I didn't remember making. It was dated 2008, labeled State of California Digital Infrastructure Risk Assessment, Sector 7, Quadrant B. My eyes scanned the grid, heart thudding harder with every inch. The data center location, the exact coordinates marked with a red pencil cross and labeled Recorded Systemic Failure Event, Probable Cascading Data Corruption. I traced the perimeter with trembling fingers. Not only had this area seen a major system failure before, it had been flagged twice, once in '08 and again in '12. I had no idea how the company missed it, or maybe they hadn't. Maybe they buried it, like they buried my report. I sat back, the room spinning just slightly. The data didn't lie. The historical records didn't lie. I'd been right from the beginning. It didn't fix my career. It didn't take away the humiliation, but it sharpened something inside me, burned off the fog, and replaced it with cold, righteous clarity. Chad thought he'd buried me, but I knew what happens to things buried on unstable ground. Eventually, they resurface. I didn't wake up one morning healed, motivated, or glowing with purpose. That's not how real ruin works. It seeps. But I did wake up one Tuesday with the distinct thought, if I stay in this robe another day, I'm going to disappear. So I peeled myself off the couch and walked, just out the front door, no plan. I didn't care that I looked like a cranky programmer with bedhead and a vengeance complex. I walked until my legs stopped trembling, until the air didn't feel like molasses in my lungs. That night, I opened a notebook that had been blank for years and started writing. Not a memoir, not some closure journey, just a list. Things the servers remember. And I kept going. Therapy followed, reluctantly. A little office off the highway with chairs that smelled like old code, and a woman named Janine who wore too many brightly colored scarves but didn't flinch when I said the words. I wanted it to fail. She nodded like she'd heard worse. I liked her for that. I hiked. I listened to the quiet hum of the world again. Not the way I used to, measuring and optimizing, but the way I had when I was a kid, tracing ant lines across cracked pavement and learning to tell time by where the sun hit the old oak trees. In the middle of all of that rebuilding, she called. Chloe Devlin, journalist, former college roommate. Once tried to hack the cafeteria vending machine for extra snacks. Now a respected investigative reporter for the San Francisco Chronicle, specializing in tech mismanagement and corporate negligence. She didn't say much at first, just that she'd heard some chatter about a new platform project skimping on security audits to cut costs. I played dumb because the NDA still hovered like a legal drone. But she was good, real good. You wouldn't happen to know anyone who worked on something out by that new data center, would you? She asked. Rumors say a key security report vanished before public launch. I stared at my ceiling fan for a long time after that call. I could feel the edge of the line I wasn't allowed to cross. Then I remembered that old archive printout. It wasn't company property. It wasn't confidential. It was public record, printed by the state in 2008, bought with a cashier's check at a Sacramento archive back when I still had student loans. So I scanned it, along with the anonymized vulnerability data I'd pulled from the state's own digital archives. I created a new encrypted email account under a name even I wouldn't recognize if you yelled it across a parking lot. I sent it to Chloe with a subject line. FYI, you may find these records illuminating. No signature, no trail, just the truth. I didn't hear from her right away. That was fine. I wasn't trying to set the world on fire. I was just planting seeds where they might get warm. Instead, I poured my focus into watching. The developers launched the public beta 2 weeks later. Social media lit up with polished promo videos of Chad in a branded hoodie, looking innovative. California's premier AI learning solution. Vomit. I watched the hype grow like a tumor, saw mock-ups with virtual reality classrooms and gamified progress trackers, and something called a mindful learning pathway. Funny, no mention of reinforced encryption or data breach mitigation. Still, I didn't flinch, didn't scream, didn't warn. I just watched, like the system logs do, quiet, still, waiting for the pressure to build. The first wave of beta users hit the platform on a Monday morning, right as California's wildfire season turned the sky into a hazy filter over the city. Chad stood at the edge of the keynote stage, all smiles and marketing angles, flanked by a pair of industry analysts who'd clearly been promised early access and exclusive interviews once the platform went viral. A live stream buzzed overhead, filming the grand launch like it was the next big tech IPO. The footage hit social media by lunchtime. A slow pan across the sleek UI, Chad grinning under the stage lights like a used car salesman on Black Friday. He kept using phrases like transformative education and user-centric design, which sounded poetic until you remembered he'd bypassed critical security reviews to rush it to market. The comments under the video were all sunshine and emojis. "Can't wait to enroll. So excited for this amazing community. That dashboard render looks lit." I created a burner account under the name AnonCoder57 and started dropping little seeds in tech forums and educational subreddits. Just curious, anyone know if their latest security audit reports were publicly released? Heard that platform had historic data integrity issues. Love the vision. Hope they're reinforcing their backend. Those zero-day exploits can be sneaky in that kind of architecture. I never accused, never pointed, just nudged the way a data packet shifts under pressure, slow and quiet until it corrupts. And someone did crack. His message came through LinkedIn, of all places. Liam Rafferty, a former intern of mine back in 2018. Back then, he wore oversized headphones and had a habit of eating his lunch with a debugging printout stuck in his sandwich like a bookmark, but he had the spark. He listened to code like it had secrets, not just specs. Now he was a full-blown software engineer for a contracting firm, one of the approved ones on the Nexus Learn build. His message was brief, cautious. "Bella, I heard something. Are the rumors true? Was the system flagged before?" I stared at the screen for a long time. It felt like standing at the edge of a digital cliff, not sure if it was bandwidth or instinct trying to push you over. I replied simply, "I hope they reinforce the database." He didn't write back right away, and that was fine, because I knew what that message would do. Liam was smart. More importantly, he had a conscience. That tiny sliver of doubt would start crawling through his brain like a worm in a system, touching everything. Every line of code, every architectural decision, every late-night compromise some project manager tried to slide past him. Meanwhile, the development kept rolling. Updates came in, features went live. The promotional campaign cranked to 11. They had branded hashtags now. #LearnWithNexus, Future of Ed, #AI, Can Help. There was even a TikTok video of Chad high-fiving a drone in front of a half-built server rack. But I also noticed things they didn't post, like the error messages pooling in the backend after a minor update, or the vague job listing I found for a data breach response consultant posted at 2 a.m. and deleted by sunrise. They were rushing, cutting, smiling through panic. I watched it all like a hawk circling a network anomaly, and beneath that quiet, I felt it. Pressure building, not just in the system, but in the people. The ones who knew. The ones who had questions they couldn't unask. Something was coming, and I didn't have to do a damn thing except wait. The first real system strain came on a Thursday, right on schedule. California's version of a seasonal software update, or maybe just Mother Nature getting ready to pop a digital zit. Not a full-blown hack, not a complete shutdown, just a slow, steady trickle of failed data packets that turned user logins into slow-motion crawls and account dashboards into flickering error messages. Nothing special, unless you'd built $1 million fantasy on rotting code. I was halfway through a leftover burrito when the first image popped up on Reddit. A blurry screenshot, clearly taken from a mobile phone, showing a 500 internal server error message at the edge of Nexus Learn's freshly redesigned login page. The caption read, "Anyone else think this platform feels off?" The comments were split between hopeful early adopters and seasoned tech support nerds. "It's just beta. Of course there are bugs. That's not normal lag. It's collecting in a heap overflow. Might be a critical vulnerability." Within an hour, The post was gone. Removed. The user deleted. But I had already saved it, and I wasn't the only one watching. That night, I saw another post, this one on a Facebook group for local parents. A woman had tried to log her toddler into the new learning modules and snapped a picture of the error message, "Data corruption detected." You had to squint, but there it was. A critical alert snaking across the screen like a virus just under the skin. The comments were concerned. "My husband works in IT, said this looks bad. Anyone else getting weird login issues near the lesson plans?" Then that post vanished too. I leaned back in my chair, heart thudding slow but hard. It had begun. The digital surface tension was breaking. The PR machine was sweating bullets under its polished veneer. Sure enough, by morning, Chad was on the local news, his collar damp, hair flatter than usual. The footage showed him walking briskly past reporters, then stopping to offer a tight, forced smile in front of a row of Nexus Learn banners flapping in the breeze like surrender flags. "We want to assure the community that all protocols are in order," he said, his voice just one octave above panic. "This project meets and exceeds every technical and privacy guideline. The user load is expected. We're in scaling phase." God, the way he said expected, like it was an excuse, like the laws of data integrity themselves were an inconvenience he refused to acknowledge. He refused to take questions. The camera caught him glancing off screen, likely toward Mr. Harrison, the investor rep who had once laughed when I warned about data stream volatility. He wasn't laughing now. The users weren't pulling out yet, not officially. Whispers had started. Account cancellations, refund requests were scheduled with vague apologies. And somewhere in all that squirming silence, I felt something unfamiliar. Not triumph, not quite. It was dread tinged with inevitability. I didn't want anyone hurt. That was never the plan. But I tried. God, I tried. I screamed into reports and meetings and emails and was met with laughter and NDAs. So now I sat in my kitchen, coffee going cold, eyes locked on a live stream of the Nexus Learn dashboard as another wave of server unavailable messages crept across the screen. I could see the data piling up clearer now, pocketing in places it shouldn't, corrupting the system around it like wet code about to split. And I whispered out loud, to no one, "Any minute now." The alarms rolled in like a freight train dragging chains behind it. Around 2 a.m., the system cracked wide open and dumped enough unencrypted user data to make the entire network shudder. I lay awake, not blinking, not afraid, just waiting. My phone groaned against the incessant notifications, the emails, the missed calls, the news alerts. I counted the seconds between flashes of critical error messages and the roar that followed, the way we all learned to do growing up in this digital age. 5 seconds, 3, then 1, then none. It felt like the whole digital sky collapsed. By morning, I didn't need an alarm. My phone lit up like it had grown tumors. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Texts, missed calls, emails, news alerts. I ignored them all. I went straight to the local tech news site, and there it was. Grainy cell phone footage from a nearby server farm, shaking as someone whispered, "Oh my God, oh my God." The camera pointed through a rain-streaked window, past the street, past the sign for Nexus Learn, to what used to be their prized main server array. Gone, or mostly gone. The right half had vanished into a cloud of smoke and sparks, just a jagged mouth where robust security used to be. A slab of server rack dangled like a loose tooth, melted cables poked out of the debris at wrong angles, part of a high-end graphics card cracked like a bitten cookie. It didn't look like a coding flaw. It looked biblical. The local media showed up within the hour. Drones, helicopters, tech analysts pointing to unforeseen vulnerabilities and unpredictable data spikes like they just discovered cybersecurity existed. Engineers were interviewed on sidewalks, rain still dripping from their hoods. "They said it was secure," one muttered. Someone else just stared off camera, dazed. It sounded robust when I first joined the project. I thought it was just minor bugs. The company cordoned off the affected servers by noon, yellow tape, and panic do wonders for crowd control. The public beta signs came down with all the ceremony of a funeral. I spotted one being yanked out of the ground by a cleanup crew worker who looked like he was burying a body. Investors began pulling out within hours. 3 class action lawsuits popped up by sundown. Platforms that hadn't even been fully launched yet. Marketing agencies swapped their profile pics to headshots without Nexus Learn in the background. The next press conference was scheduled hastily. It was held in a smaller room. No branded banners, no catered snacks, just a handful of shell-shocked spokespeople sweating under bad fluorescent lighting. Chad was notably absent. Mr. Harrison, the investor, looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. He actually rubbed his temples on camera like he was trying to push the migraine back in with his thumbs. No one mentioned my name. They didn't have to. I watched it all from my couch, barefoot, wrapped in a worn fleece blanket that still smelled faintly of old circuit boards and rain. I poured a glass of wine, cheap red and warm, perfect. The news droned on, interviews and B-roll looping like some ironic victory lap. I muted it, sat in the silence, sipped once, and smiled. It wasn't joy, not exactly, just a cold, precise satisfaction that slid down smoother than the wine ever could. They built their future on a lie, and the digital world swallowed it whole. 3 weeks passed, long enough for the initial media frenzy to cool into curated damage control, for the marketing team to try scrubbing Nexus Learn from every corner of the internet like it was a cursed phrase. But no amount of PR bleach could clean up what the digital realm had already broadcast. The data had spoken, and it hadn't stuttered. During that time, I hiked, I slept, I started teaching a digital ethics class at the community college down the road. Just 1 night a week, nothing fancy. The students were half interested and always late. They asked questions, real questions, and none of them laughed when I told them that neglected vulnerabilities were silent predators. Then one afternoon, as I was reviewing old lecture slides and drinking coffee that had gone cold, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize, area code New York. I stared at it for a second, then answered. "Dr. Rossi?" The voice was hushed, trying for casual but strung tight underneath. "Yes," I said flatly. "This is Mr. Peterson, managing partner on the Nexus Learn project. We were hoping to consult with you regarding security risk assessments for a few adjacent investments. Different sectors, of course. We're in early stages, and given your, familiarity with the area." He trailed off. I could hear a voice in the background whispering something, probably about legal exposure or optics, or how many lawyers they'd already burned through trying to put out this fire. I let the silence hang just long enough to make him sweat. Then I said, calm and surgical, "You already had a reliable expert." Pause. "You fired her." He fumbled for a reply, some corporate cocktail of regret and repositioning. "Of course, and we regret the circumstances, but this is a fresh opportunity to—" I ended the call mid-sentence. Then I scrolled to the contact log, hovered over the number for a beat, and deleted it. No grand speeches, no follow-up email, just gone. I leaned back in my chair, let the stillness stretch out. Outside, a few squirrels chased each other across the fence line, utterly indifferent to the small shift in the universe that had just occurred. I was never going to be vindicated in headlines. Chad would land on his feet. Men like him always do. The platform would rebrand, reshuffle, resell. But now, they knew. Now he knew. And next time someone like me raises a red flag, maybe, just maybe, they'll listen before the system crashes. I sipped the last of my coffee, still bitter, still cold. Perfect. This story illustrates the critical importance of integrity and courage in the face of corporate pressure. Bella's unwavering commitment to truth, despite being silenced and ridiculed, ultimately proved her right. The positive message is that truth always finds a way to surface, and genuine expertise cannot be perpetually ignored. While the journey may be challenging and isolating, standing by your principles and advocating for what is right, even when it's unpopular, is a testament to your character. It reminds us to trust our instincts, believe in our data, and never compromise our ethical compass. Ultimately, success built on deception is unsustainable, and genuine success comes from a foundation of honesty and rigorous standards. Your voice matters, and sometimes the quiet act of persistent truth-telling is the loudest message of all.